What's up, fam? Hello, everybody on Instagram. Let's wait for everybody to come in. What's up, everybody? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be tapping in from around the world. Hello, hello. Let's wait for everybody to come in while I get the chart pulled up. We have a full moon in Aries coming up. It's gonna be a spicy one. I'm just happy that we're getting out of the eclipse energy fully. How's everybody doing? How was your eclipse season? How was your eclipse season? This eclipse season was very, very like spicy. It was very intense. Was kind of, tragic, I would say. Everything just seemed to be moving very fast. Virgo season just went by so quickly. Um, Wow, this eclipse season was crazy. I feel like we are literally in a different like timeline coming out of like the eclipses, you know? Everything that happened with Charlie Kirk with CK just like triggered this like it was just like a domino effect of like rapid quick change, especially if you're here in the States. At work, listening in secret, very Mars and Scorpio. I love that. I love that. That's so funny. Let me go ahead and get the chart pulled up. So full moon in Aries coming up on the 6th. I almost said the 4th. Today's the 4th. We have a full moon in Aries coming up on October 6th. It's going to be a really, 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 really fiery, full moon that we're dealing with, y'all. And we're going to talk about it once I get this chart pulled up. 11:47. It's going to be at 11:47 p.m. Eastern time. Let me go ahead and I'm going to put in New York here. New York. Buenos dias. Yes, was intense energetically and inwardly. LOL, me too, listening in secret, one headphone hood up. That's very more. Someone says, eclipse season was wild all around me, but I was good. I just tried to be chill and be nice. One for the books, definitely. Someone said about this eclipse season. Let me keep going. Let me see what other folks are saying. Someone said this full moon is in Aquarius. Well, it's not. It's in Aries. We this is a full moon in Aries, my love. Okay, they might be going by Eastern or Vedic astrology, but I even think in Eastern or Vedic astrology, the full moon's going to be in Pisces. It's usually like one sign away. It's usually like one sign away. Hello. Look at everybody. All the we have more people coming in. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we're going to be talking about the full moon in Aries today, what it means for us collectively, what it means for us individually, and who is it going to impact the most, okay? So, I think we got enough people here. I think we can go ahead and dive in. So, we are going to be having a full moon in Aries, like I said, on October 6th. It's going to be at 11:47 p.m. Eastern time. So it's like right around midnight. It's gonna look really cool, actually. I think those on the East Coast will be able to see it. It's gonna be, what time is it gonna be over here? I'm on the West Coast, so it'll be what, 11, 12, 2:47 a.m. It'll be at 2:47 in the morning on October 7th if you're Pacific Coast, or if you're on Pacific time, or if you're on the West Coast, okay? If you're on the East Coast, it's going to be 11:47, all right? But it's going to look really pretty. It's going to be like directly up in the sky and everything. It's going to look really nice. I'm looking at the full moon at the New York chart. The full moon is going to be in the 10th house with Cancer on the rising. But the rising is going to look different depending on where you're at in the States or where you're at in the world for this full moon. Hello, everybody. Let's wait. Okay, we got more people coming in. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, cool. So full moon in Aries. What is the sign of Aries? Okay, what is a full moon? Let's talk about a full moon first, okay? Um, for those of you that are learning, just getting into astrology. A full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposite each other when it comes to the chart or when it comes to the pie wheel that we look at. So we're going to have the moon in Aries and the sun in Libra. And a full moon offers us a moment of balance and integration, but also a moment of like culmination and completion, and also a moment of release and closure associated with the houses that we have Libra and Aries in, and also the general themes of Libra and Aries, but specifically Aries, right? So, what is Aries? Aries is the sign of anger, it's the sign of individuality, it's the sign of passion, it's also the sign of guns and violence, it's also the sign of war. Aries is ruled by planet Mars, the angry red planet, right? And so, for those of you that have Aries people in your life, some of them can be very combative, some of them can have a temper, some they're very, very assertive. My grandmother, I grew up, I was raised by an Aries woman. I have Jupiter in Aries, so that's my grandmother in my chart because Jupiter can sometimes signify your grandparents or, yeah, could signify your grandparents in your chart. So I have Jupiter in the second house, so I was actually raised by an Aries grandmother. And let me tell you, that woman, Capricorn, what does she have? A Capricorn moon and an Aries sun. So she was very bossy and very dominant, and she had a temper. Okay. I've watched my grandma pull knives out on family members and things when I was growing up, and it was very intense. It's funny because in my lineage, on my mom's side, what they say is that we have Avalos blood. And the Avaloses, which is from I think it's is it grandmother or grandfather? It's my it's my mu my it's my I think it's my grandfather's lineage, yeah, that the Avalos blood. No, it's my grandmother. It's my grandmother. Duh. That the Avalos blood comes from, but in that lineage, all the men in that lineage have like temper and anger problems, and they're all very combative and they fight, and some of them have like murdered people, like. So Aries, when we're talking about the sign of Aries and we're talking about Aries energy that runs in the family generationally, we're talking about people that are very bossy, very assertive, very dominant, very angry. They also love danger. So one of the interesting things about Aries energy is you'll see people that have Aries placements, especially if it's affecting their career houses. They'll work in dangerous jobs or they'll do dangerous things. So they become police officers, they join the army, or they work in crisis. So they end up becoming like an ambulance person or a paramedic, or they become a firefighter, things like this. So yeah, that's one of the things that we see with Aries is there's this excitement and this passion and even this like attraction to danger and violence and things like that. When we're talking about a full moon in Aries, we have the moon in Aries and the sun in Libra, like I said. Well, what's the sun in Libra about, right? Libra is the sign of partnerships, of relationships. Libra is a sign of peace, of justice. Yes, Libra is a sign of lawyers as well. Libra is a sign of, fairness and equality and all these things. Libra is ruled by Venus, right? So what's really interesting about, the signs of Aries and Libra and also Scorpio and Taurus is we have Mars and we have Venus in opposition to each other when it comes to the astrological wheel, right? So Taurus opposes Scorpio. Taurus is ruled by Venus. Scorpio is ruled by Mars. And also Aries, right, opposes Libra. Aries is ruled by Mars and Libra is ruled by Venus. And this is why relationships in general tend to be very hard and very, very difficult. One of the things that I see with people that have um, the combination of Aries and Libra placements, or they have a lot of Aries and Libra in general, even if they don't have the other sign, is they tend to deal with conflicts and fighting and war and aggression in relationships. Full moon in Aries opposing the sun in Libra, this can really be about claiming your individuality or claiming your independence within a relationship, right? Understanding that love is not always something that you love. Libra is not something that you always have to fight for, Aries. Sometimes you just have to throw in the towel because it's too toxic, it's too violent, it's too aggressive, or there's not like peace and harmony and balance in the relationship, right? So when we're talking about a full moon in Aries, the full moon in Aries is going to go ahead and illuminate our passion. It's gonna call us to being more individualistic. It's gonna make us maybe a little irritable or really frustrated, or even if there's things that we've been holding on to with anger and rage, or if we've been holding on to resentment, if we've been holding on to jealousy, if we've been holding on to the energy of vengeance, if we've been holding on to the energy of betrayal, right? A full moon in Aries will have us release that emotion or actually take action towards expressing that emotion in some kind of physical way, right? Because Aries is a very physical sign. Aries is a very action-oriented sign. Aries is an impulsive sign as well. So that's one of the things we want to watch out for with this full moon in Aries, because the moon is our emotions, right? The moon is our emotional body. The moon is family. The moon is what is emotionally important to us, what we care about. The moon is also what we feel like we have to protect, right? So when we're talking about the moon, we're talking about, oh, I got to protect my land. I got to protect my kids. I got to protect my babies. I got to protect, my relationship. There's this energy of protection. And sometimes in order to protect something, what do we have to do? We have to go to war. We have to fight for it, right? And things like that. So that's something that I want you guys to be very aware of with this full moon in Aries, this kind of like amplification, okay, of Aries emotions, but also the ruler of Aries, like I said, is Mars, and Mars is in Scorpio, so it's also Scorpio emotions as well, which is where I was getting the jealousy, the resentment, the betrayal, like, the vengeance energy, wanting to get back at people. This full moon is giving us an opportunity to release and clear out these emotions and to let go of these unhealthy patterns when it comes to the way that we relate to our emotions, and specifically the emotion of anger. Okay. We are being encouraged to transmute that energy and turn it into passion, turn it into action, or turn it into assertiveness, but to not let it get the best of us to where it becomes destructive, where it becomes combative, or where we're just going to war and we're fighting, and then we end up destroying everything, right? And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed with Aries energy and Aries people as well, is they have a really bad habit of burning bridges. They have a really bad habit of just jumping to conclusions and being like, fuck it, burn it all down, destroy the whole thing, Like, let's just go ahead and let's take it to the extreme, let's take it to the max, to where, they do something that's so aggressive, that's so, crimes of passion and things like this, to where you cannot go back from it, right? And I think one of the things that is very, dangerous about, Aries energy is, you know, the act of murder. I mean, Aries is a sign that the extreme, to the extreme point of Mars and of Aries, and that's one of the things that we talk about when it comes to the signs that are ruled by the malefic planets. So Aries and Scorpio ruled by Mars, which is considered malefic or more of a negative energy and more of a challenging energy, the planet Mars. And also Aquarius and Capricorn being ruled by Saturn, right? Saturn is also a negative malefic planet. So Mars and Saturn in traditional astrology are known as being the evil planets, right? But one of the features of Mars and Saturn is taking things to an extreme, getting so angry, getting so mad that you get a gun out, that you get a knife out, and that you just like, murk somebody or something like that, right? I'm just using this as a metaphor because I want you guys to understand, what Aries energy is about and what a full moon in Aries can like illuminate or could trigger for us, right? Not only collectively, but also individually. Okay. If you are a cardinal sign, if you are an Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, or a Libra, the reason why this full moon can be very important for you is because it's going to either be conjoining you if you're a Libra, it's going to be squaring you if you're a Cancer or a Capricorn, if you have placements there, or it's going to be opposing you. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. The sun is it's going to be opposing you if you're a Libra. It's going to be conjoining you if you're Aries, right? So if you're an Aries, the sun is opposing you, but if you're a Libra, the moon is going to be opposing you. But in some way, this full moon is going to be activating you. Specifically, if you have anything around 14 degrees in the middle degrees of a cardinal sign of Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, or Libra. Okay. 14 degrees is a Taurus degree. So, Taurus, the 14 degrees has a lot to do with resources, has a lot to do with money. It has a lot to do with our values and what's important to us. It has a lot to do with our structure and our stability. The 14th degree Taurus energy has a lot to do with the way that we relate to the material world, right? The way that we relate to money, the way that we relate to our body, the way that we relate to food. These are all Taurus themes. These are all 14 degree themes. Okay. So it's like, with this full moon, at 14 degrees, we may be releasing something around, our habits, our values, but our dietary habits, our values. We may be releasing a relationship, releasing a partnership, or there can be an invitation, right, to um, transform or change or evolve something within that 14th degree, our relationship with money, our relationship with food, our relationship with the material world, or even relationships in of themselves, right? Because the sun is in the sign of Libra. Someone's asking a question. How do we consider the nodes when thinking of our placements in these signs? Mine's at 18 degrees. Well, yeah, if a full moon is happening on your nodes, it's kind of like you're having like it's like activating an eclipse energy in your chart, right? So if you have the nodes in Aries and Libra at 14 degrees or around here, and then you're having a full moon that's hitting your nodes, well, guess what? You are having your own personal eclipse moment, okay? Where karma, fate, destiny, new things come in, right? When your nodes get activated in transit by a full moon or a new moon, or even when your nodes get activated by a square from another. So let's say Jupiter's in Cancer right now at 23 degrees, and let's say you have the nodes at 23 degrees of Aries and Libra. Well, guess what? Jupiter in Cancer is squaring your natal nodes. So Jupiter in Cancer could actually activate something for you in transit, right? And it can be about, the karmic journey that you have with your nodes in Aries and Libra. I also have my nodes in Aries and Libra, and for those of us that do have our nodes in Aries, oh, thank you for buying a badge. If you guys want to support me, if you guys like the wisdom and the knowledge that I'm dropping, please go ahead and buy a badge. I'd be really grateful for that. Also, if you don't mess with Instagram like that, you don't want them having your debit or credit card information or whatever, you can always go on my link tree, and that's where I have my Cash App, my Venmo, my PayPal. If you want to send me a little donation, a little $5. I don't drink coffee, but I do drink tea, so I would actually be using it for my tea. Speaking of, okay. Um, so yeah, I have my nodes in Aries and Libra, and those of us that have our nodes in Aries and Libra, we're figuring out things around partnerships and relationships, right? If you have your nodes in Aries and Libra, you know that you struggle with love and partnership, and you struggle with that balance between individuality and yourself and your passions, right? And your independence, which is Aries, and like partnership, relationship, harmony, balance, and things like that, or even being treated fairly, being treated equally and stuff like that. I have my South Node in Libra with my North Node in Aries. So those of us that have the North Node in Aries, we're moving towards independence, we're moving towards individuality. We're moving towards, being the lone wolf and being passionate and really standing up for ourselves and asserting ourselves and also building a healthy relationship with anger. That's one of the things that when you have the North Node in Aries, when you have Aries placements, you have to build, oh, excuse me, ooh. You have to build a healthy relationship with Mars. Wherever your Mars is at, if you have the North Node in Aries, you have to build a healthy relationship with your Mars. I have Mars in Libra, right? So for me, I have the South Node and Mars and Libra together. For me, it's about, really finding my individuality and finding my independence and finding my power, within relationships, Libra. And it's really hard for us because, the South Node in Libra, wherever you have your South Node at in general, right? Yeah, if you have your North Node in Capricorn, South Node in Cancer, yes, because if this full moon is squaring your nodes, right? So this is the other way, right? Like think about this. So let's say you have your North Node at 14 degrees Cancer and your South Node at 14 degrees Capricorn, and this full moon is squaring your nodes exactly. Well, guess what? Your Capricorn and your Cancer houses are now activated, and now karma, fate, destiny, the nodes are going to be activated for you. One of the things that I've noticed, and actually Judith Hill talks about this in her books on eclipses. So she's an astrologer that I absolutely love because she combines Vedic and Western astrology. She mainly does like health astrology. I actually might have one of her books right here. Is this it? Oh yeah, here it is right here. Look at here you guys go. I love Judith Hill. So here she is right here. This is how you spell her name. So this is actually medical astrology for health practitioners. I've learned a lot about medical and health astrology from Judith Hill, but she actually has two books that are really quick, easy reads, really short ones. She has one on the nodes and she has one on the eclipses. So she has and they're super quick. You can read them in like a day. They're like really thin. They're kind of like textbook. They're kind of like, simple workbook textbook books. But there's one that she has on the nodes and there's one that she has on the eclipses. I highly recommend for those of you that are, getting into astrology, want to learn. And what I love about Judith Hill's books is they're really, really easy to understand. They're not complicated at all. They're really easy to read. Like they're very, very accessible. You know, sometimes astrology books can be very heavy and very dense, and they can just have really big language. What I love about Judith Hill is she like condenses it and she, what do you call that? She condenses it and she also makes it really easy, really accessible. She makes it digestible, okay? And very simple, you know. Oh, for those of you, I don't know if I showed you, those of you on, this is the book right here. This is one of them. For those of you that are going to be watching this back on YouTube, okay? So yeah. So if you have, a full moon squaring your north node, south node in Capricorn or Cancer, this is going to be important for you. It's going to be very, very important for you, right? North node in Cancer, the same way people have north node. No, it's very different, right? If you're the nodal direction, right? The where your north node is at and where your south node is at, if you have opposite nodes, it's different. So if you have the North Node in Capricorn, you're moving towards Capricorn energy. You're here to cultivate Capricorn energy. You're going to find success. You're going to find worldly success with Capricorn. People that have the North Node in Capricorn, if they're in the alignment with the North Node in Capricorn, they usually want to become very successful, very ambitious. They're very career oriented. They want to leave a legacy. They're very disciplined and things like this. They're very self-controlled. They could be a little dominant, a little bossy. Where those that have the North Node in Cancer, they're moving towards emotion, compassion, family, having children. It's really funny because I see a lot of people that have the North Node in the fourth house or the North Node in Cancer, and many of them are like, at some point, something clicks, and they're like, oh my God, I want to have children, I want to have a family, I want to start a baby, or I want to have a baby. And usually that happens like, or after like around like the age of 28, 29, or even around the age of like 36, 37, because that's when they're getting eclipsed. So we have our reverse nodal return around 27, 28, and then we have our nodal return, our second nodal return around the age of 36, 37. So you'll see a lot of people that have the North Node in Cancer, they will become parents at some point, even if it takes them a while to get there, right? Because what's comfortable, what's familiar, what's safe is the South Node in Capricorn. So, like that's like what comes natural to them, right? So, okay, a little detour that we did, but yeah, just a little education on the notes. This is a great way to learn how transits will actually impact you or activate your chart. Not every full moon or new moon is going to be relevant or important for you because sometimes you have a full moon or a new moon that's not touching anything in your chart. It's not activating anything in your chart, right? It's like the way that I think of astrology, the way that I think of our chart is like our chart has like certain buttons and planets in transit or, whether it be progressions or solar return, like things like that, right? Things need to activate. Like there has to be transits, planets moving in the sky that push those buttons to activate events, to activate karmic things. Otherwise, nothing's going to really happen, right? So that's the way that I like to think about it. But yeah, so going back to the full moon in Aries, right? This full moon in Aries at 14 degrees is inviting us to reconnect our passions, to reconnect our individuality, to reconnect to our power, our personal authority. It's one of the things I always think about with Aries is Aries is a very like it can be very authoritative but personal authority. Like Aries is not trying to be a manager or be a boss a lot of times, even though they do end up in those positions. Aries is trying to work for themselves or by themselves. Like this is why you'll see a lot of people that have Aries or even that combination Aries Libra. They'll be an independent sales rep or they'll start their own company or start their own business, or they'll even work in a way to where they're autonomous and they're like competing with other people because Aries is also the sign of competition. It's one of the signs of competition, right? Aries wants to win. I don't know if any of you have worked with an Aries person, especially if you've worked a sales job with an Aries person, but Aries wants to be number one. Aries wants to win, and Aries thrives in fighting. Aries thrives when there's competition or when there's war. That's when Aries comes alive. That's when Aries is like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be number one. This is also something that Scorpios have in common with Aries because Scorpios are ruled by Mars. And Scorpios love to be the best. They love to be number one, but they're not going to be very overt about it. Aries is going to be very, very boisterous about it and very like, overt. And you're gonna be able to, they're gonna boast, they're gonna brag. Aries is gonna do that, but you're not gonna see that with Scorpio. Scorpio is gonna let you win, let you think that you're winning, and then they're gonna come in right at the very end and bop, go in for the kill and win, right? That's how Scorpio works. Because Scorpio is the feminine side of Martian energy. of Mars, where Aries is the masculine side of Mars energy, right? So yeah, so this full moon in Aries, it's really going to be asking us to claim our independence, to claim our power, to claim our authority, to find that balance between the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries, right? The moon in Aries is an emotionally irritating, frustrating, challenging placement for the moon, right? The moon is not comfortable in a fire sign, especially not in the sign of Aries. Those that I've read that have a moon in Aries, their mom is, they're always fighting and arguing with their family or with their mom, or their mom could have been physically abusive or had a bad temper, right? It depends on how the chart is. But the moon in Aries is a very aggressive moon to have, and a lot of times there tends to be, a lot of tension and a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and rage that we experience in childhood. Either the person internalizes this and they feel this way, where they become angry, or it's something that happens in their environment, right? Where the sun in Libra is like, trying to find inner peace. The sun in Libra with this full moon in Aries opposite the full moon is like, can we find inner peace? Can we stand up for ourselves? Can we be our own lawyer? Can we speak up for ourselves, right? Can we, find that balance and harmony between myself and the other in order to sustain the relationship? I think one of the things that is so important when we are going through a full moon in Aries cycle, when we're about to have a full moon in Aries, is how do we have to ask ourselves, how do we deal with conflict in our everyday life? And do we have a certain process, right, where we have a healthy relationship with conflict? We have to understand we're not always going to agree with our partner. We're not going to always agree with our kids. We're not going to always agree with our bosses, with the people around us, right? And many of us, we have a really, really hard time dealing with conflict, right? And so what happens is, we go out in the world and then we get walked all over, right? We're passive aggressive, we end up saying yes when we should say no and things like this. So I think one of the things that's very important during this full moon and Aries cycle, I want you to pay attention to: how do you stand up for yourself? How do you assert yourself? And how do you claim your power? How do you deal with conflict? These are all natural parts of the human experience, right? We have to learn how to deal with war. We have to go learn how to fight for ourselves. We have to learn how to claim our independence. Sometimes everyone in the room is going to be wrong and we're the only one that's right. And we got to have that confidence and that bravery. And we got to have that chutzpah to be able to be like, no, all y'all mofos are wrong. This is what it is. This is what I think, right? Aries is a very individual sign. Aries is like what I think. Okay. I don't care what you think, right? Like, this is what I think. And we see that also with Leo. Okay. Leo's also like that. Just got to throw it in there. Got to throw in a little jab with Leo energy because Leo is very like that. But yeah, so with this, with the moon in Aries opposite the sun in Libra, we're really asking ourselves, how do we claim space? How do we claim our power? How do we, be independent? How do we remain passionate and assertive in the realm of relationships with the sun in Libra, right? The sun is highlighting your Libra house right now, but the moon is going to activate that axis of Aries and Libra for you. And that axis of Aries and Libra can be very challenging and very difficult. I know this. I have Jupiter in Aries with my North Node in Aries. Like I was saying before, I have the nodes in Aries and Libra, but I have my North Node in Jupiter in Aries. And then I have my South Node in Mars and Libra. Okay, and let me tell you, the influence of Jupiter and Mars along my nodes and in those houses makes it a little challenging sometimes. But where there's an invitation for us to really take a look at our Aries and Libra houses, and for us to kind of like like heal, right? We're being invited to kind of like heal that, to integrate, to find balance, or even to release and find closure and find peace. You know what I mean? And whatever axis this full moon is happening on, those houses are very important. Those are the houses that you want to look at, okay? So this full moon in Aries is being disposited by Mars and Scorpio. So Mars, the full moon ruler, is in a very, very strong position, okay, for the full moon, where the sun in Libra is fallen, the sun is weak in Libra, okay? And not only that, the ruler of the sun in Libra, which is Venus, she's also fallen, okay? So Venus is in the sign opposite of her exaltation, which is Virgo, which is means she's in her fall. And then also the sun is opposite, he's in the sign opposite of his exaltation, which is Libra, which is also in his fall. So we have kind of like an afflicted or a very weak Venus and Sun for this full moon, where Mars is strong. Mars is doing his thing, right? So what does this tell us? This tells us that partnership, partnerships, relationships, money, finances, finding peace, finding balance, finding harmony is going to be a little bit of a struggle with this full moon because Mars is stronger, okay, than the sun and Venus in this for this full moon. Mars is he's in the sign of his rulership, and so I really think that the energy is going to lean more with this full moon in Aries. It's going to lean more towards being assertive. It's going to lean more towards aggression or anger. It's going to lean more towards passion, individual passion. It's also going to be a very sexual full moon. This is going to be a very sexual full moon. If you put the full moon on the rising, if you put the full moon in Aries on the ascendant, which I'm going to do right now, in the eighth house, we have Mercury and Mars there. Okay. So that Mercury, Mars in the eighth house away from the full moon it tells us that there's going to be eighth house things, taboo. We've been seeing a lot of it already with Mars and Scorpio. Oh my God, the grossest things have been coming up with like all these religious leaders being caught as like pedophiles and being caught with like the weirdest. They're just doing tranny porn. They're finding them on Grindr. They're finding them with like children's, like just the weirdest ish has been coming up since Mars has been in Scorpio. Well, guess what? With this full moon in Aries, Mercury goes into Scorpio. Mercury is going to be at 0 degree Scorpio and also squaring Pluto. So what I will say, because we have Mercury and Mars in the eighth house away from the full moon, and they're in Scorpio, which is also an amplification of an eighth house energy. There's going to be a lot of kind of like dark stuff coming out, I think, with this full moon. There's going to be a lot of gossip. There's going to be a lot of scandal. There's going to be a lot of taboo things, kind of like a lot of gross things. People are going to be very sexual and things like that. People could be making like, sexual passes at us. Also, another thing with Mercury, Mars, and Scorpio for the full moon, I want everyone to be mindful of hidden motives or deceptive intentions when it comes to relationships and partnerships. Also, another thing, because of the eighth house, second house access from Mercury, Mars, in Scorpio in the eighth from the full moon on the rising, money and resources and weird financial entanglements with people could be a theme to where you're like, oh my God, that person owes me money, right? Or the IRS is coming after you, or you have to settle and repay some debts or something, or, all of a sudden a bill that you forgot about comes in the mail and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to pay this bill, otherwise my electricity is going to come out or something like that, right? So I just want you guys to be very aware of the fact that the eighth house is very, very activated with this full moon in Aries or eighth house energy. And that has a lot to do with betrayal, deception. That has a lot to do with also divorce and separation. That has a lot to do with weird financial entanglements with others and things like that. The positive thing, though, is that this is a very kind of like, this is a very intuitive, this is a very transformational, this is a very, revealing full moon in Aries. So if there's anything that you want to know, if there's any kind of questions you have for spirit, for the divine, if there's anything that you want to be revealed to you, you can do that with this full moon. This is a very witchy full moon, okay? We have Mars in the eighth house away from the full moon with Mercury there. And Mars is in Scorpio, Mercury's in Scorpio. It's a very, very witchy full moon. We may even see things like astrology and the occult and, witchcraft and stuff like that. We may see that stuff in the media in some type of way with this Mercury, Mars in the eighth house. And also with Lilith. Oh my God, we got Lilith in the eighth house too in Scorpio. So there's just like a lot of Scorpio energy with this full moon. Also, Mercury is squaring. Let me share my screen for those on for those that are going to be watching this back on YouTube. And I'm going to actually pivot this a little bit. Let's go and do this. What is that? Is that Inspector Gadget? I think it is. I think that's Inspector Gadget, you guys. Da-da-da-da-dun-dun-dun-dun. Or is that Ghostbusters? I don't know. Who do you guys know what that's from? I don't know what that's from. Hold on. I'm putting the full moon on the rising. Hold on. It's Inspector. I knew it. Da-da-da-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. It's so funny how I was like talking about Scorpio energy and Inspector Gadget came up because Inspector Gadget is such a Scorpio energy. It's like the combination of like Mercury and Scorpio, but Inspector Gadget is very Scorpio. Very, very Scorpio. Okay. It's like Gemini and Scorpio, but he's definitely Scorpio energy. I like the villain too. The villain with the cat, and he has like a hidden face. That's like whenever there's a villain and you can't see his face, like his face is hidden. That's Scorpio, by the way. Okay. Like Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader, he almost died, and he comes back from the dead, like reborn, and then they hide his face. Like the rebirth aspect of Darth Vader, the hiding the face aspect of Darth Vader is very, very scorpionic. He's also kind of Saturn though. He's also kind of Capricorn energy. Frankenstein, well, they always do like the reveal of the monster, right? The monster remains hidden throughout like the film or the movie or the show. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you see the monster's face, and you're like, oh, right? But they all that's Scorpio. That's Scorpio energy. So, anyways, okay. All right, let's get back to the full moon. So, one of the things you want to be very mindful of with this full moon is the fact that we have Mercury and Pluto in a hard square with each other. So, Mercury goes to 0 degrees Scorpio. On the full moon and immediately squares Pluto and Aquarius. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Mercury is the ruler of the sixth house in Virgo, and sixth house is like jobs and work and things like that. And that's also where we have Venus in the south node in the sixth house. And then the ruler of the sixth house is Mercury, who's in the eighth house of death, rebirth, and transformation, also squaring Pluto. This is kind of looking like more health issues. This is looking like more illnesses when it comes to like diseases of the lungs and diseases of the stomach and the digestion and like things like with the vid and stuff. We're going to see with this full moon there's going to be an uptick of illness and sickness. So what I will say is, everyone, please take care of yourself, keep your immune system boosted. The best protection for against any kind of like, of these kind of like these lung diseases, these like airborne, diseases that have been floating around. The best protection is keeping your immune system up and keeping your like, like make sure you're eating well and like making sure that your diet is good. That's like the best protection. So, but I just want you to be aware of this because we do have this kind of like Venus South Node in the sixth house together, and then we also have the ruler of the sixth and the eighth squaring Pluto. Okay. But yeah, this is also going to look like people losing jobs or people moving away from jobs. We're going to see more things maybe around pets and stuff like that as well. Pets going through challenging experiences, pets needing surgery, elderly pets passing, and stuff like that. They're also, because Venus and the South Node are so close together, 16. Yeah, it was like a 4 degree orb from the nodes being at 16 and Venus on the South Node. This can probably be a very kind of like contentious or very difficult. Full moon for relationships, but also Venus is sextile Jupiter. We have like Jupiter and Saturn almost in their trine, and Saturn is 6 degree is at 27, where Venus is at 21. They're kind of like in opposition. But I think there's going to be some reality checks when it comes to relationships and partnerships. And because it's a full moon in Aries, where Aries energy is being favored and Mars is stronger, and Mars is strong, where Venus and the Sun are debilitated and weak. Um, I think this energy is pushing us more towards individuality. It's pushing us more towards asserting ourselves. It's pushing us more towards like, separation. Mars is the planet of separation. Mars likes to cut, he likes to separate. Okay. So I just want you guys to be very mindful of this because there could be some really deep, heavy emotions that this full moon in Aries stirs up, especially if you've been holding on to resentment against others, if you've been holding on to anger against others, if there's something that you've been wanting to say but you haven't said and you just been sitting with it, like this full moon in Aries can trigger that emotion and want you to do something with it, want you to take action, right? So I think a lot of people are going to be feeling very inspired and very passionate and very sexual, but also people are going to be feeling very kind of like assertive, very combative, very angry, and very like, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to fight for myself and things like that. So we just want to watch for that energy though. Like I was saying in the beginning, Aries energy can be destructive and explosive, and it can just want to burn the bridge. Okay. Like, and just fuck it, just burn it all down. Like I was saying in the beginning, right? So be mindful of that energy though, because you got to ask yourself before you just let the just succumb to the anger and let it come over you. You got to ask yourself, is this really what I want? Do I really want to destroy this? Do I really want to, get this connection or or have the situation unfold in a way to where, we're going past the point of no return and there's no looking back. I want you guys to be very, very mindful of that, okay? Because there's going to be kind of like a Mars and Scorpio, a temptation to be emotionally triggered and to just like, lose your ish possibly, and just be mindful of that, okay? But I do think with this full moon in Aries, because we have Venus still separating from the South Node, and Venus is coming into an opposition with Saturn over there, like within like 3 or 4 days. Actually, like, yeah, Venus is gonna be coming into an opposition with Saturn in Pisces, like right in the middle of our full moon and Aries cycle, which is gonna be 2 weeks. A full moon and a new moon cycle is around 2 weeks. And so I do think there's like certain karmic checkpoints when it comes to relationships and partnerships. It's not all bad though, because also I do think that relationships that have been lacking boundaries, relationships that have been codependent, relationships where there's an uneven give and take, okay? Relationships where one person is taking advantage of the other person, or one person is allowing themselves to get taken advantage of because they feel sorry or they feel bad for the other person. I do think this full moon and Aries cycle is going to be a karmic checkpoint for those kind of relationships, those kind of Pisces, Virgo type of relationships. You're trying to heal someone, you're trying to save someone, you're trying to rescue them, you're trying to like, what is it? You're trying to um baby them or nurse them back into wellness, or we just got to be very aware of this. If you're finding yourself in that situation to where there's like inequilibrium to where you're trying to save or rescue or help or something, to where you're constantly getting taken advantage of, or this person's like not reciprocating, whatever. This full moon in Aries can go ahead and trigger some kind of conversation or some kind of action to where you're like, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off, or I'm going to talk about this because this is no longer sustainable for me and things like that. So I just want you guys to be very aware of that, okay? Especially if you have anything at the beginning degrees of Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, or Leo. So if you have anything from like, because the Mercury and Scorpio at 0 is going to be hitting people that have anything like, around 0 degrees of a fixed sign. So, Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, if you have anything around there. Also, you want to be mindful of Mars. Mars messed me up. We just had that football player today that ended up getting stabbed last night. Hold on. He was like an ex-football player. What's his name? Oh, yeah, former NFL player Mark Sanchez was stabbed in Indianapolis last night. Well, Mars is going over his Venus-Pluto conjunction in Scorpio right now. Okay. As I was doing yoga last week on Sunday, Mars was going over my Mercury and my Sun in Scorpio early degrees, and I messed up my shoulders because Mercury rules the shoulders and Mercury rules the lungs, and I ended up actually messing up my shoulder. Ended up hurting my shoulder when I was just doing a basic plank doing yoga. It was so weird, but that's Mars. Mars causes inflammation. Mars causes pain. Mars causes injury. Mars causes accidents. Okay, things like this. That's what Mars does to us when he's in transit. Not always. Sometimes it can be a moment of passion. Sometimes it could be about meeting a man, because Mars is also the planet of men, or meeting a partner. But sometimes it can be a moment of anger or fighting, or a moment of violence, or even a moment of like, danger with Mars. Someone says, as a very intuitive Cancer, this makes so much sense with exactly how I feel. And I was just talking to a good friend about this with my Gemini. Mind blown, Louie. Thank you for the validation. You're very welcome, my love. I'm glad that this is resonating with you. That's awesome. Yeah, and you're a Cancer, so you're getting squared, right? So Cancer and Capricorn people are getting squared by this full moon. So, it's what's so interesting about Cancer and Capricorn folks, is that, they have Aries and Libra squaring them. So, Cancer gets pushed into asserting themselves, into claiming their independence. And so, Cancer can also be a very angry sign. Cancer could also be a sign that's kind of pissed, that gets pissed off and stuff. And this is because, Mars goes into its fall in Cancer. What happens when you put Mars, the planet of anger and aggression, in like the water in the ocean, right? Well, you get boiling water. You get some very aggressive energy. And the fact that Mars is fallen in the sign of Cancer makes a lot of sense, because Cancer energy can lose its shit emotionally, you know? Especially when people have Mars and Cancer. I know a few people that have Mars and Cancer, and Lord Jesus, when they lose their shit, they really let it out. Okay. And they cry about it afterwards. It's just something I was talking about. They feel bad and they feel guilty and they cry about it afterwards. I think that's a Mars and a water sign thing, especially Mars and Pisces, Mars and Cancer. Not so much Mars and Scorpio. Mars and Scorpio doesn't feel bad when they get angry and mad and they go out. They're like, they deserved it. When people have a strong Mars, they have no like they don't have like a guilt complex with their Mars, or they don't like feel bad afterwards. When people have a strong Mars, they're like, they deserved it. They asked for it. You know, they pushed me there. You know, there's no regret when people have a strong Mars, I feel like. So yeah, anyways, let's keep going. So yeah, like I was saying with fixed signs, because if you're Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, or Leo, and if you have anything, around 9 degrees of those signs or around 0 degrees of those signs, this Mars Mercury could be impacting you, could be squaring you, conjoining you, or sitting in a opposition with you. So I want you guys to be very aware, fixed signs specifically, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. I want you to be very aware of this Mercury Mars transit and how it's impacting you. Mars can be a little dangerous. So, I want you guys to be very aware of that, okay? But Mars is also in Scorpio, so it's about asserting yourself. It's about following your passions, chasing your passions, claiming your individuality, standing in your power, being assertive, being sure of yourself, and building a really strong, healthy relationship with Mars. Also, Aries, if we're talking about Aries when it comes to health, full moon in Aries, Aries does rule the head. Aries rules the brain. Aries rules the blood. Aries rules the iron in our body. Aries also rules the muscles. And Aries is also connected to what else? Blood, muscles, the brain, the head. What else is Aries connected to? Blood, muscles, brain, the head. Iron, I said. I think that's it. There might be there might be, I feel like there's one other like body part or one other something I'm missing. But anyways, these can be areas of sensitivity when it comes to the full moon. So, if you're someone that gets headaches or migraines, you want to kind of be mindful this full moon of what you're eating. You don't want to let too much anger or rage get to you because it's really anger and like pent up frustration and pent up heat in the body that causes brain issues. Also, like, dementia and stuff like that can be like an Aries thing. It really depends, but that can be an Aries thing as well. Also, if you want to put this energy somewhere good, this full moon and Aries energy somewhere good or productive, go to the gym, work out, build muscle mass. That's one of the things I always tell people that have like a weak Mars, or when Mars is, they're like a Martian person, they have a lot of Mars in their chart. Like if they have Mars on the ascendant, or if they're an Aries rising or Scorpio rising, or if they have like Mars on the sun or Mars on the moon. I always tell them build a relationship with Mars by getting strong. You want to build muscles. You want to like make sure that you are strong, because what happens is when you embody Mars's energy, you're not going to experience it so much mentally or emotionally. You're actually putting Mars to work, and you are putting him in your body. You're strengthening your muscles. You're building your Mars up, right? And it also allows you to have more discipline over your anger. If you're someone that has an anger problem, when you go to the gym and work out and you build muscles and stuff, you're going to have more discipline over your Mars in general. So you're not going to get so angry, you're not going to get so frustrated, you're not going to be so combative, you're not going to get so emotionally triggered. It's really healthy to build a strong relationship with Mars, especially if you're someone that is a Martian. If you have a strong Mars imprint in your chart, you have a lot of Scorpio, you have a lot of Aries, you have Mars on the ascendant, you have Mars conjunct the sun, Mars conjunct the moon, or Mars is aspecting a lot in your chart. You really want to build a healthy relationship with Mars, okay? Because Mars can be incredibly destructive. And if you're a Mars person and you have an unhealthy relationship with Mars, we've all probably come across people that have an unhealthy relationship with Mars because they're combative, they're angry, they're selfish, they're mean, okay? They're violent, okay? Violent is another one. Mars is a violent planet. Mars, Aries is a violent sign. So, it's one of the things to think about, okay? With this full moon in Aries. Also, your blood pressure, high blood pressure, low blood pressure, things like this. The opposite of Aries is Libra. Libra rules the kidneys. Libra rules the kidneys. Libra rules sugar. Libra rules sweets. Libra has a lot to do with the equilibrium and the balance. right? Libra is responsible for filtering and cleaning out, the kidneys, the blood, Aries. This is why Libra and Aries are on the same axis, right? And so one of the things that's so interesting about the axis of Aries and Libra, though, is Libra rules because Libra rules sugars and sweets. Libra, though sugar is terrible for the blood, is it makes the blood toxic, right? So one of the things when we're talking about, full moon in Aries with the sun in Libra, if you are someone that is a diabetic and you have Aries, Libra, oh my God, my ear is ringing. You're if you're someone that's a diabetic and you have, really poor insulin levels and your blood sugar isn't regulated, or even if you, have high blood pressure and stuff, you want to be very mindful of this full moon in Aries because this full moon in Aries can, amplify the energy and put you into a moment of like health crisis possibly. But it can also help with like your healing journey in some type of way, or can make you very aware of like, wait a minute, this is a problem, this is an issue. I need to fix it. I need to work on this. Someone said they're Mars and Scorpio and a Scorpio sun, who is very masculine. I love when the sun and Mars are in the same sign. I love when that happens. Not every sign, but like you don't want the sun and Mars together in Libra, because the sun and Mars, right, are both weak in Libra. The sun is fallen in Libra, Mars is in detriment in Libra. You know, um, but I think I do know someone that has sun. Oh, you know who? I think Travis Kelce has the sun and Mars in Libra. Let's see, Travis Kelce birth chart. I think he does. He has Sun conjunct Mars and Libra. Let's see. He does. Yeah, he has Mars at 10 degrees Libra and the Sun at 12 degrees. See, I be knowing these things, man. I'm like I have like an elephant brain, elephant memory when it comes to charts. I just be knowing where I like whenever I see a signature in a chart, I like take a mental note of it, and then I have like a library. I have like a of like charts of like where have I seen this signature before and how is that manifested, That's also how I ended up when we were doing Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's synastry and breakdown. I was like, oh, Nicole Kidman and Martha Stewart have like the same chart. They're both Scorpio rising and they have like houses 2, 6, and 10. They have all this fire energy. So that also happened when I was looking at when I was looking at Nicole Kidman's chart. I was like, her Nicole and Martha are like the same person almost. They're very similar. They're very, very similar. Anyways, okay, let's get back to the full moon Aries. So like I was saying, yeah, so Libra rules like sugars and sweets, and Libra sugar is really bad for the kidneys and really bad for the blood, right? So, areas of sensitivity for this full moon, it can be our muscles, we want to be mindful of pushing our muscles too hard for this full moon. We don't want to get a muscle tear or a muscle strain. The head, Aries rules the head, the brain, headaches, our blood pressure. High blood pressure, low blood pressure leads to headaches. Nourishing the blood, drinking a lot of green juices, working on your liver, working on your kidneys, doing, cleanses around those things so that your blood is best quality. You want your blood needs to be good quality. Okay, we got to work on our blood health, eating a lot of beets, eating a lot of greens, eating those drinking those fresh juices. If you have good quality blood, your brain and your feet are not going to suffer. Okay, they're the farthest, parts of the body. They're the farthest from the heart, the brain and the feet. And this is why when people have really poor circulation, poor blood quality, they get edema where they have like swelling in the feet, and all of a sudden, like they just, it's like, and they also, start getting dementia or Alzheimer's, or the brain starts to waste away, right? If there's not good quality going to the brain, or if the blood isn't, there's either high blood pressure or low blood pressure. Also, sugar is really bad for the brain. I don't know if y'all knew that, but eating a lot of sugar and sweets, it's terrible for the mind. It's terrible for the brain. They're actually, I think they came out with a study where don't quote me on this, okay? Do your own research. I'm just going to mention it, and it may not be right, but there's some mental illness that's connected to sugar. Not mental illness. That's not what I meant to say. It's like either Alzheimer's or dementia that's connected to having sugar in the brain. Like it's like when sugar molecules get into the brain or whatever, and they can't like get out, and like the sugar in the brain ends up like making the brain toxic, or it destroys like the brain's tissue and stuff. Do Scorpios tend to find Mars and Scorpio sexy and attractive? I know someone whose Mars conjunct my sun and Pluto. I know someone whose Mars conjuncts my sun in Scorpio, Pluto conjunct my Venus in Scorpio, and Sun. Oh yeah, that's like you. Yeah, Okay, yeah, look at so they said I'm right. Yeah, they said Alzheimer's is kind of like type 3 diabetes. Someone said I'm correct. Yeah, so so one of the things, diabetes can lead to Alzheimer's. So you want to be very mindful of this. But yeah, when someone has Mars on your Venus, Pluto on your Venus, when you have Mars on the sun, it brings a lot of sexual magnetism. It brings a lot of attraction. It's really hard to resist, especially when like Pluto Mars are together in synastry, Venus Mars are together, Mars on the sun, like there's like it brings a lot of sexual energy, a lot of attraction and stuff like that, especially if it's in Scorpio, especially Scorpio energy. Also, because we do have Mercury, Mars, and Scorpio in the eighth house away from the full moon, and the dispositor, the ruler of the full moon in Aries is Mars and Scorpio. This can be a cycle where people need surgery, where people get tattoos, where people are also experiencing, illness or sickness around the reproductive organs. Be careful with STDs for this full moon cycle, okay? You don't want to catch anything. Also, your urinary health, your kidney health, watch out for UTIs, bladder infections. What's so interesting is actually I found out yesterday that my dad has a bladder stone. So they're gonna need to do like a procedure or something to remove, not to like air out all your your health stuff. I think my dad's here, but that makes sense, right? Bladder stone. This full moon in Aries with the Sun in Libra, Mercury, Mars, and Scorpio. So I think he's gonna need to get a procedure done or something. But oh, someone said they're getting a tattoo on Sunday. That makes, yeah, because of the Mercury, Mars, in the eighth house. But yeah, some people are going to need surgery. They're going to need to go to the doctor, They are going to need to settle some debts, do their taxes. They're going to need to talk to someone about some kind of deception or betrayal. Someone's going to have to ask someone for money, They're going to need to ask someone to pay them back or something like this. Or, we might even be taking out a loan or something, or we might purchase a vehicle. We have Jupiter in the fourth house with Mercury, Mars in the eighth. So this can be like, oh, I'm buying a house, I'm buying a car, I'm going back to school, so I need to take out a loan, I need to take out some debt, I need to do a refinance and pull out some equity in my house. Jupiter and Cancer in the fourth house of home and property, Mercury, Mars in the eighth house of debt and unearned income and things like this and loans. So I don't know. There's certain things that could be manifesting with this Mercury, Mars in the eighth house. But what I will say with Mercury square Pluto between the eighth and the 11th, watch for like secret, hidden, private information falling into your lap to inform you about something that you're experiencing or like a situation, or to give you some deets on like what's going on with the relationship or what's going on with someone. That Mercury square Pluto for this full moon is going to be digging up the tea. There's going to be a lot of drama. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's dug up. There's going to be a lot of hidden secretive stuff that comes to the surface. And also, watch out for financial hacks and stuff like that. Watch out for getting scammed and things like this. I don't know why I'm just looking at that Mercury square Pluto, and this is kind of giving like information gets hacked, like banking or financial information gets hacked or something like this, or a website gets hacked or something because of that Mercury square Pluto. But we'll see how that manifests over the next 2 weeks, okay? Um, so yeah, another thing I want you guys to be mindful of with this full moon is the fact that Mercury and Uranus are also quincunx each other. So Uranus is in Gemini at 1 degrees, making a trine to Pluto, but Mercury and Uranus, the signs of Scorpio and a Gemini, they quincunx each other. So that's like a 150-degree aspect. It's an awkward aspect. So with Mercury square Uranus, with Mercury quincunx Uranus, okay. Watch out because Uranus is in the third house. Accidents when you're walking, when you're out in the park, or when you're driving. Also, malfunction when it comes to your vehicles or when it comes to technological gadgets, because the quincunx creates dysfunction. The quincunx can create issues or problems, okay? It's similar to a square, but it's a little bit more clunky. It's a little bit more awkward, okay? So, if your car needs to be repaired, if you need new tires on your bike, if you need to take your iPad in to get repaired or fixed or something, that's probably what we're going to see with this full moon in Aries with that Mercury in Scorpio making a quincunx to Uranus and Gemini between the third house and the eighth house in some type of way, okay? There could also be really dramatic situations with Mercury things. So, dramatic situations at the job, with siblings, with aunts and uncles. A pet, Mercury in the eighth house, can need surgery. South Node Venus in the sixth house, Mercury in the eighth house, a pet needs surgery, okay, or something like that, or a pet needs something, some kind of medication, or a pet is going through a health crisis. So we just want to be very aware of these things. Take notice, see what's already moving in your life. Be like, okay, what's already moving? What's already shifting? And then you can kind of get an idea of possibly how this full moon is going to hit you if you are like a cardinal energy or if you have any of these planets aspecting things in your chart. Okay. Let me go ahead and take a breather real quick. Let me drink some. We're an hour in. Let me drink some tea real quick. Any questions so far? Someone said your aunt had their gallbladder removed. Oh, that's we if you can avoid getting your I'm not someone that's here to give medical advice. I'm not a doctor anyway, but if you can avoid getting your gallbladder removed, do it, okay? Unless it's too far gone, you should do everything that you can to try to save your gallbladder and avoid getting any organ removed because you need all your organs. You need your gallbladder, you know? And I know that a lot of people, I know of people who've gotten their gallbladder removed, and it's just created a chain reaction of issues and problems for them, after they got it removed. You really want to, do your best to kind of bring it back into function and stuff before you get it removed or make a decision like that. But sometimes it's just too far gone. Or wait, you said bladder? My bad. What I meant to say was gallbladder. Oh yeah, no, you said gallbladder. Yeah, yeah, my bad. I for a second I thought bladder. I was like, wait a minute. If you get your bladder removed, like you're gonna need a catheter and things, and that's gonna get real complicated. No, gallbladder. If you can avoid getting your gallbladder removed, you should. Okay. Any questions so far with where we're at? Any things that you guys want to ask about or talk about? Um, we're an hour in. I usually do like 2 hours of this, but I don't know. I feel like this has been pretty good and pretty comprehensive so far. Um, One of the things I will say is my feet has been hurting. My Aries placement is in Saturn. You have Saturn in Aries. That's the correct way to say that. If your feet have been hurting, that is like blood pressure stuff, my love. You need to be working on that's like water retention, blood pressure stuff. You better start walking. You know what I mean? Aquarius rules the calves and the ankles. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but the calves are actually the second pump to the heart. So our calves are actually, when we walk, this is why daily walking is good. When you walk, okay, your calves actually pump blood back up to the heart. So Leo rules the heart, Aquarius rules the calves and the ankles. So guess what? They're on the same axis. So guess what? Aquarius, your calves are your second heart. This is why walking is really good for your heart because it gets your blood flowing and then blood goes down to the feet, goes down to the legs, and then your calves, when you're walking, is pumping up back up to the heart. It's allowing things to flow. It's allowing the blood to flow between the bottom half of the body and the top half of the body. So if you start to experience swelling and pain in your feet, start going on walks. 30, 45 minutes every morning. Okay. And also at nighttime, I would suggest 2 times a day if you can. It's real, like walking, just basic walking is so good for the heart. I cannot tell you. Um, so yeah, you guys are learning some medical astrology today. Look at that. Um, so yeah, Mercury and Scorpio in the eighth house. So also, so one thing I do want to say as well that I don't think I mentioned, but jobs, my loves. If you have a job, if you're an employee somewhere, we're seeing a lot of changes and transformations at the job. We have Venus in the south node in the sixth, and we have Mercury, the ruler of the sixth, and the eighth squaring Pluto. So there might be some people getting laid off. We're going to see some more closures. I guarantee you there's going to be more businesses closing. There's also going to be like mergers and stuff like this. One of the cool things that we do have though, which I like in this chart, for the full moon, I love that Jupiter is sextile Venus and that Jupiter is kind of like moving into this trine with Saturn. The Jupiter Venus sextile is kind of giving me romance, it's giving me love, it's giving me friendship, it's giving me having fun, hanging out with people. It's also giving me kind of like maybe good outcomes when it comes to work for some people, when it comes to jobs, like new job opportunities you might see with that Jupiter Venus sextile. Yeah, I like that. Jupiter in Cancer, sextile Venus in Virgo. That's kind of like cleaning up the house, redecorating the house, doing home improvement stuff, really coming up with a good health routine. Venus, South Node in the sixth house in Virgo, you know, we're feeling safe and comfortable at home. I do think this full moon in Aries with Jupiter in the fourth, it just feels like home and family feels good right now. During this full moon, or that's where our safe space is at, right? Jupiter in the fourth house, in Cancer. But yeah, I do want people to be mindful. If you are an employee, you have a job, if there's been a lot of conversation, or if there's been you're a little suspicious, or your bosses are acting weird, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on with the job? Like, what's going on with the direction of the company? Or, there's been like anxiety at the job around people getting laid off or the doors being closed and stuff. Pay attention and listen, especially if this full moon or if these transits are hitting you directly. If you're going through a nodal return, if you're a Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, and you have the nodes in Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sag, pay attention because this, even though it's a full moon in Aries, we still have Venus in the South Node, Venus separating from the South Node. And we're going to have Venus and Saturn moving into an opposition, within a week or so. And we'll talk about that on Monday with the Week Ahead Astro. I'll talk to you guys about the Venus opposite Saturn because that is like a marriage point. That's like we're committing or we're going to do this, or that's like a karmic checkpoint when it comes to relationships and partnerships. That's a business. It's also a business. Like a business engagement aspect or transit, like to where we commit to a business partner, or we like file paperwork for our business, for getting a business going, or we have to do some kind of exchange with the government. We have to go to court. We have to do something, with the law. That's a Venus Saturn Venus has a lot to do with the law and justice and things like that. And Saturn is like government. Saturn is like going to higher authorities, right? Judges, they wear black. They're very Saturn energy. Mars exalts in Capricorn, right? Capricorn judges are very Saturn energy. They wear all black, and then Mars, the planet of anger, right, is exalted, is strong in Capricorn. And what do judges have? They have a gavel. They get a hammer. Mars, right? To claim authority, to what? Establish their authority. Bah, 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 bah. Order in the court. Everyone shut the fuck up. Okay. The judge, Saturn is talking, right? You know? So how I want you guys to think about astrology. Because when you think about astrology in like a metaphorical way like this, and you can see it around, you can apply it to like, archetypal characters or roles or jobs or things like this. It's really when astrology comes alive and when you can really apply it, and it becomes real. We are very, very detached. I think many people are very detached from how astrology actually manifests in our material life and our material reality. But once you start connecting the dots and you start seeing astrology everywhere, it will literally come to life for you in a really beautiful way. And you'll just be like, oh yeah, look at that. That's Mars. Oh yeah, look at that. That's Scorpio. Oh yeah, look at that. That's Mercury. Like, it's really interesting to see. It's really fascinating to see. Um, so yeah, so really be mindful of what's going on with like jobs and things like that and the workplace and stuff. Someone said they're a Fed worker that got furloughed and randomly you got a job interview today. I love that for you. Yeah. I think we're gonna see more people getting jobs or like opportunities with jobs when Venus goes into Libra. Someone said they have to testify in court on Monday. Well, full moon in Aries. Look at that. I just listen, y'all. I figured some things out, when it comes to the planets. But yeah, we want to be mindful of that. Also, the sixth house in Aries is a sign of enemies. It's a sign. These energies are connected to war. So I think what's also very important is to be watch out for, like I was saying in the beginning, people with hidden motives or hidden intentions, but also kind of like open enemies. I really do feel like this full moon in Aries, um, Mars in the eighth, Venus in the sixth. It just feels like, there's someone that we're going after. There's someone that's coming after us. It feels like, there may be enemies that appear. There may be like some battles that you have to fight and things like this. And just lean in. Don't be afraid, okay? If righteousness and truth is on your side, you have nothing to worry about. But if it's not, okay, you're gonna end up like Diddy, okay? So no, I'm just kidding. 4 years, that's it? Like that's all you got. All that. We did all that for 4 years. Are you kidding me? We did all that. We went through all of that. For 4 years, for 50 months in jail. Are you kidding me? He got lucky though. He got lucky. The reason why he got lucky is because Jupiter and Mercury were squaring each other. He got a little lucky when it came to that outcome, I must say. Because we all thought he was getting more. Did you guys think he was getting more? He got a presidential term. Yeah, he did. Did you guys think he was gonna be getting more that he was gonna be getting more time? I thought he was gonna be getting more time. Someone said that sentence is diabolical. Yeah, they gave that man a lot of grace. I'll tell you that. The Jupiter and Cancer, Jupiter squared Mercury really gave him some grace. Um, Crying like a baby and got 50 months. Meanwhile, Suge Knight got 28 years as an Aries and did not blink. Yeah. Aries are always in Aries people. Listen, Aries, if Aries is a sign that tends to end up in jail or like be a criminal. Like or because Aries has Pisces in the 12th house and they have Gemini in the third. And I don't know, I think Aries they have karma with like the law and authority figures because they have Saturn ruling their 10th and 11th. And so it's like Aries really is a sign that like when they are not behaving, when they're not like acting right, when they're like violent and combative and they go out in the world and they bring that energy out into the world, they will end up in jail and in prison all the time. Like they will Jupiter will and Saturn will be like to jail immediately. Immediately to jail. Straight to prison. Okay, they have no wiggle room. Okay, Mars does not have wiggle room. I think Scorpio has a little bit more wiggle room. I think Scorpio can get away with it a little bit more, but not Aries. Aries is one of those, they're always ending up in jail. It's just some of them have an Aries rising X was in prison for like 3 years. Yeah. You got like, yeah, Aries, listen, you don't listen when it comes to the law and stuff, Aries, you have Libra in the seventh house, you got Capricorn in the 10th. You don't have wiggle room. Okay. The law is not going to be nice to you. So no breaking the law during this Aries full moon cycle, okay? So, okay. All right, let's kind of like summarize things. I don't want to just drag this on pointlessly. I think we've done a pretty good overview of the full moon in Aries. So, all right, our full moon in Aries. When is it? It is on October 6th in 2 days at 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay. What is this full moon in Aries going to illuminate for us? Full moon in Aries is going to illuminate our passion. It's going to illuminate our individuality. It's going to illuminate our power. It's going to activate us to assert ourselves and kind of be dominant and not be dominant, but to, assert ourselves within the realm of relationship and to claim our space, to claim our individuality, and to also build a healthier relationship with Mars energy in general, right? With our actions, with our body, with our passions, with fire, with heat, things like this. Um, and then it's being disposited by Mars and Scorpio in the eighth house. So, we're talking about, these emotions that we hold on to, like resentment, betrayal, vengeance, purging those emotions. The full moon is inviting us to release those emotions, right? This full moon in Aries with the sun in Libra can also show us what's imbalanced within our relationships. It can also show us where we're overcompensating and giving away our power, moon in Aries, or where we need to be a little bit more balanced, a little bit more harmonious, a little bit more compromising, a little bit more forgiving, Sun and Libra. Okay, so the opposition between the Sun and the Moon for the full moon, we're being pulled between Libra and Aries energy. We're being pulled between relationship and individual self. We're being pulled between peace and war. We're being pulled between our kidneys and our head, right? Like the kidneys and the brain. Okay, Sun and Libra, kidneys, Moon and Aries, the brain. Okay, like there's that tension that we're trying to find reconciliation with, that we're trying to find harmony and balance with, that we're trying to find some kind of completion with, some kind of, closure with, something like this. Okay. Yes, and this is going to be a very activating full moon. People are going to be very active, very busy, very spicy. We want to slow down. We want to not move fast. We don't want to be too impulsive with this full moon, okay? But we also want to make sure that we are asserting ourselves and that we're claiming our power. And if we need to go to war for ourselves, if we need to fight, then we got to. It is the name of the game. Um, yeah, full moon in Aries, welcome. We also have, Mars, the dispositor of the moon in Aries, is really strong in the sign of Scorpio, where the dispositor of the sun, Venus, because the sun is in Libra, ruled by Venus. Venus is in Virgo. They're both weak. The sun is fallen in Libra. Venus is fallen in Virgo, and Venus is separating from the South Node. So this tells us that when it comes to partnerships, relationships, harmony, balance, health, okay, when it comes to fairness and equality and justice, that's weak right now. That we're not getting good outcomes, or there can be struggles around those things because of the fact that, the sun is fallen and Venus is fallen, right? We may be feeling a little insecure, we may be feeling a little unconfident. I think Libra season tends to reveal the ways that we judge ourselves, especially with Venus and Virgo, the way that we judge ourselves, the way that we're too perfectionistic, the way that we don't give ourselves grace or compassion, the ways that, we also don't assert ourselves or stand up for ourselves, because that's, Libras, you got to be your own lawyer sometimes, your own advocate, right? But the sun is fallen and Venus is fallen, right? So we just want to be very mindful of the fact that, the sun in Libra in its fallen state for this full moon in Aries could be illuminating insecurity. It could be illuminating insecurity, or a lack of self-worth or lack of self-confidence, especially when Venus is in Virgo. But it can also be illuminating what's wrong in general when it comes to our partnerships, or even what is out of balance. And I think that's one of the things that Libra season is so great at doing. It's really good at helping us analyze what is off kilter or off balance in our life, so that we can bring it back into harmony. We can, go ahead and shift the energy around to balance out the scales and things like this. Okay. Yeah. And also with that Venus and Virgo, we really want to be mindful of our health, really want to be mindful of our habits. We have Mercury, Mars in the eighth from the full moon, and we have Venus in the sixth. So, we don't want to be defaulting to bad habits or bad behaviors. We don't want to be escapist or avoidant. Also, with Venus in Virgo and Saturn in Pisces, and Venus moving into an opposition with Saturn over the next week, we got to be mindful of codependency in relationships, trying to rescue or trying to save others, solid boundaries. Venus opposite Saturn coming up in a week or so is going to be about us establishing boundaries in our relationships. And it's going to be us also committing when it comes to relationships and going deeper and making, like, giving someone a promise ring and stuff like that. Or also, we may see some engagements and stuff. It is Libra season. Venus is going to oppose Saturn. So, Venus is also separating or moving into a sextile with Jupiter. So I don't know. We might see some proposals or some marriages or some engagements or even some business partnerships forming during this full moon. Okay. But yes, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. We did about an hour and 20 minutes, which is good, so to make it digestible for people, people don't have the attention span to sit through an hour thing usually nowadays, but I'm grateful for those of you that have been here this long. I'm so grateful for you. And yeah, this will be posted to YouTube as well. So you guys want to go back and watch it. Everybody say hi to the Hood Healer. Say hi, Amani. Thank you for being here, my love. Beautiful, gracious soul. Love me some Hood Healer. Love me some Amani. That was like one of the first people that I got turned on to on my spiritual journey and stuff. That was one of the first people I was connected to. So, all right, my loves. Well, you guys have a beautiful, blessed day. Thank you guys for being present. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and spending this time with me today. I'm really hoping that this full moon in Aries isn't too crazy or isn't too aggressive or isn't too, you know, um, isn't too full of conflict. My wish is that this full moon in Aries inspires you, it motivates you, it connects you to your passions, it connects you to your power, it connects you to your individuality. It gives you the courage and the gusto to stand up for yourself and assert yourself. And I also, really hope that this full moon in Aries helps you build a healthy relationship with your Mars. People either have a very disconnected or unavailable relationship with Mars, or they have a very toxic and unhealthy relationship with Mars. Many people they have too much, they're like letting Mars just do too much in their life, getting triggered, being angry, being combative, fighting with everyone, right? Or they're very disconnected from their Mars. They don't assert themselves, they don't fight for themselves, they don't know how to deal with conflict, right? So, I think this full moon in Aries is a beautiful opportunity with Mars in a strong position. It's a beautiful opportunity for us to really integrate Mars in a healthy way and for us to build, especially with the moon emotions in Aries, full moon, right? In Aries, to build a healthy relationship with anger, right? Anger in of itself is not bad. It's what we do with it, how we handle it, and whether or not we can, channel it to something constructive, right? if we're angry or bothered by something, that tells us that something is off, something is wrong, and we need Mars to be able to go ahead and make change in our life, to be able to assert ourselves and to be able to, confront things or challenge things or fight for things. We need our Mars. Mars is healthy. It's okay. Mars is fine, right? It's okay to be a Martian person, or it's okay to build a relationship with Mars, right? We cannot deny Mars within us. We need a solid, strong Mars. And if you're someone that's looking to build a healthier relationship with Mars, start going to the gym, start working out, start building muscle. Also get used to competition. I think sports and things like this is why we see Aries and Libra and Leo fire signs are always in sports, especially Aries and Sag, because they love competition. They thrive off of competition, right? Aries is the god of war, and the god of war, he needs something to go to war for. He's going to war for his kids, he's going to war for his right family, for his country, for his rights. He's going to war for justice. He's going to war for, right? Like that's what Mars does. Mars goes to war because he has to protect something, he has to defend something. He wants to make a change, in some type of way. So I just want you guys to be very, very aware of that. When it comes to this full moon in Aries, having a healthy, good relationship, especially emotionally, moon in Aries, right, with Mars, with Aries energy, right, with your power, with your passions, with your individuality, and things like this. Okay. Someone said, Sag Moon, give me a dance floor or leave it. Yeah, Sagittarius rules dancing, You'll see a lot of soccer. Okay, these are Sagittarius, baseball, soccer, volleyball, long distance running, dancing. Those are all Sag things. Horseback riding. Okay, those are all Sag things, Sag loves that. Sag is also a sign that will get in a car and just like drive 6, 7 hours aimlessly and end up somewhere just because they need like a long distance journey. They need to connect to that energy. But yeah, I love you all so much. Have a beautiful, blessed day. It's 1, 2, 3, perfect time to end this. I'm gonna go ahead and post this. You guys can go back and watch it, and I'll also be posting this on YouTube. If you guys want to go back and watch it on YouTube, you'll be able to do that as well. Okay. And yeah, full moon in Aries. All right. Um, if you're gonna go to war, do it with reason and purpose, okay? Don't go to war for just nothing, all right? And mind your temper. I love you guys. I love you. You're welcome. I love you all so much. Okay, I'm gonna see you guys around. Have a beautiful, blessed day. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. Our full moon is coming up on what, the 6th on Monday, like I said, right? Yeah, 6 at 11:47 p.m. Eastern time. So okay. Oh, let me go ahead and. Oh, thank you for buying a badge. Everybody that bought a badge, I appreciate you guys so much. I love you all. You guys are just amazing, and you guys just, you guys keep me going. Where would I be without my little tribe, our little family? I love you all. Yeah. You take care. Have a good day, okay? I'll see you. All right, bye.